So when we talk about this rebrickable MOC, we're actually looking at a mock of a rebrickable MOC. The original design was by a user called Hybricks, Haibricks, who did a majority of this design that you're seeing here. It was then followed up by a second user called George T93, who took and enhanced this a little bit further and did a couple of things that I really like about this overall design. So when you compare these two side by side, that's where you really see some of the physical differences. The new design stands about a plate taller than the standard play scale and is about 3 to 4 studs wider in length, though it looks a lot bigger when you compare them side by side like this. The George T93 design has about almost 1,000 pieces, 990 pieces as compared to the standard 478 pieces for the normal one. And it really takes advantage of those extra pieces. So when we compare these two side by side lengthwise, you really see where a lot of those extra parts end up going. The MOC is almost 4 inches longer than the standard play scale set, which to me is just perfect to make this an actual minifigure scale. As you can see, you take advantage of things such as having these extra pieces to build forward and aft cannons on the MOC as opposed to the one set on here. You have additional storage points on both sides, a total of 4 rather than 2 like you have on the play scale. The actual compartment entrances are fairly similar, but due to that extra height that you get with the approximately 1 plate taller, you'll see that minifigures actually fit in here a lot better. That was one complaint a lot of people had about this one, is the height didn't really allow a figure to walk through those doors. So it took away from a little bit of the scale and the presence of this. The actual cannon itself has been redesigned to include some movable parts, which make it look a lot more authentic and better in my mind in some cases for display. It does take away a couple of the flick fires and mounts them over on the sides, vice being the main cannons. It does only have about 180 degrees of swivel on the standard play scale, whereas George T93 has actually turned this into a full 180-degree swivel, which I really like. I think that to me just makes no sense. There are modifications for this to give it a full 360 degrees. I don't know why LEGO decided not to do it, but they didn't. So there are available MOCs on Rebrickable if you would like to correct and fix this on a standard play scale. But here you get all of that built in, and I really like the changes that were made to the turret on here because it makes it look a lot more authentic. It does use a couple of pieces, however, that are parts of the actual artillery stormtrooper mounts for their mortars. So you lose essentially the pieces that allow the base plate to connect to the mortar. They're actually used here to create these additional custom lasers. So it's a small thing. Replacement pieces are just a few cents. And if you were really in a need, you could probably figure out a way to replace those pivot points with some other additional spare bricks and fix that. But it's a minor thing. It's really nothing that's going to impact the play of either the mortars for the stormtroopers or the actual Marauder itself. The actual roof section to access the interior is a single entry point with the play scale, whereas with the MOC, you have not only 2 different access ports to get in there, you can actually remove the entire roof to get in and look at the exterior. And in a second here, we're actually going to compare this so you can see what the differences are there. So starting to look at the interiors, with the standard play, you have no removable roof. You just have an access port, which gives you access to 2 seats to mount stormtroopers or other figures in there. So very limited in that case. Whereas with the MOC, you get a total of 4 seats by default and 2 different options for the interior. George T93 has created one that I've built here, which allows storage or an armor storage area for the extra weapons and a access into the actual rear turret, or he provides instructions on how to turn this into a detainment cell for prisoners. So you can actually have a detainment section in here, and you do lose that access to the rear door. So you have a option, which I think is great. Again, a free set of instructions that gives you not 1, but 2 major changes is just outstanding. And as I mentioned earlier, you can remove the roof entirely. However, you also have 2 access ports now that allow you to get in there very easily as well. Changing over to the pilot section, that's where some significant changes have occurred as well. With all of those added studs and plate sizes, Compared to the standard play scale, you can see you have enough room for Stormtrooper to pilot it, and there's a little bit of wasted space in there, actually. Whereas with the MOC Marauder, you have the ability to actually not put a single driver, even though George T93's instructions do design this very similar. They have a center-mounted pilot seat. I shifted that pilot seat over, and there's enough room to add a second co-pilot, which is what I did, to basically emulate that idea of having somebody mounting and kind of controlling all these new additional guns that you have on the Marauder. I just thought that was a little more authentic in my mind. You don't have to do that, and George's instructions don't actually have that. All it takes is a tan plate, which comes in your spare parts left over from his build, and it takes all of 5 minutes to change that. So I thought that was just great, though. To have enough room to do something like that is just, amazing. Heading to the rear sections, you can see they do look similar, although there's obviously more greebling in detail just due to the sheer size of the MOC. They operate in fairly the same way. Again, you have a single mounted Stormtrooper point. Again, this only shifts roughly 180 degrees, whereas on the MOC, you have a very similar door hinge and control. Still uses a single Stormtrooper for the gun mount. However, it does by default swivel the full 180 degrees. And in this version, it does actually have a walk-through point for that trooper to go and leave the turret if that's what you want. So not a lot of difference there. But again, just those small features really make this that much more authentic and more of an actual displayable versus playable version. But again, you don't lose any of the playability that you're seeing on this one. You still have all of your stud shooters. You still have all of the storage and ability to access and move characters around in it. You just have more. You just have so much more space, and the figures themselves seem to fit the overall model so much better. Just wrapping up on the exterior, you will see there's minor greebling and things that have been adjusted, and a lot of that is just because you have spare parts left over. And the ability to add to this is there. In fact, some of the greebling that you see on there isn't even necessarily items that George has in his build. They were just so many extra pieces. I was able to add some additional detail in there and really make this a little more custom to myself. But again, you don't have to do that. His instructions alone make this thing look very nice. As an added point, he's even come out with a further MOC update to this MOC where he really removes a lot of the exterior studs further, adds about another 200 pieces in addition to the 2 sets you're already using. So some users may not want to invest any more money into a single vehicle, but you could do that if you really wanted to make this more of a snot MOC version of the Marauder. And speaking of the spare parts, as you can see here, while having a fairly sizable amount of parts left over, it's nothing that's ridiculous. You don't feel like you've wasted a lot of pieces once you're done combining the 2 sets. And what you are left with, a majority of these pieces can easily be used in other MOCs. They're not just common little tiny pieces that you already have 1,000 of. There's some nice sized plates in there and other unique pieces such as doorways and swivel points and things like that. So you get some good pieces that you can use for additional MOC builds in the future or to get ready for your next MOC that you find on Rebrickable.
So all in all, I have nothing but good things to say about George T93's MOC. It adds in every way, whether it's size, design, capabilities, playability, and displayability. He's done just such a phenomenal job in this. The only small comment I have, which isn't even a complaint, is that, again, it does take two or three small pieces from the mortars for the mortar figureman. But again, it's a small gripe. Those parts are easily replaced, and you could even do some slight modifications to correct that yourself. But again, George's design is perfect. There's no reason to do that. I love the fact that the displayability is incredibly enhanced on this, makes it true to scale, so much more attention to detail without losing any of the playability, and in fact, adding a lot of playability just due to the number of extra bricks and functionality and capabilities you have both interior and exterior. So again, great job to him. I will provide a link to his Rebrickable page that includes not only the instructions for the two versions of this build, but also for his Snot version, which I mentioned, as well as the original MOC designed by Hybricks that his MOC is built upon. So if there's any questions, or if you'd like to see additional photos or any more details that I didn't provide, please feel free to leave a comment or reach out via my email, and I'd be happy to answer your questions. Again, this is Old and Surly. Thanks for watching and have a great day.